That's for a young man. That's gotta be a tough
You
trip.
just get on the plane. I'm still tired.
Bobby's up in the booth. What is it about television? Does television make you look heavier? Is it because the tube is curved?
I don't know.
Widely remembered as the king of late-night television from the 1960s to the early 1990s, Johnny Carson left an indelible mark on entertainment history. Over his legendary 4-decade career, he interviewed countless high-profile figures, charming audiences with his wit and presence. But despite his reputation for professionalism, there was one guest in particular that Carson was never fond of. In today's video, we're diving into the one guest Johnny Carson couldn't stand, as well as highlighting some of his favorite guests throughout his time on The Tonight Show. Stick around. You won't want to miss this. Who was Johnny Carson? Born John William Carson on October 23, 1925, in Corning, Iowa, he was the middle child of Ruth Elizabeth and Homer Lloyd Kit Carson. When Johnny was 8, the family moved to Norfolk, Nebraska, where he spent his formative years. From an early age, Carson showed a passion for entertaining. At 12, he discovered a book about magic, bought a magician's kit, and began performing card tricks for family and friends. With support from his mother, who even made him a cape, Carson began putting on shows, including one at the local Kiwanis Club. By 14, Carson was charging $3 for performances, hinting at a future in show business. He once even impersonated a naval officer hitchhiking to Hollywood, an act that got him fined $150. Carson's rising star took a pause in 1943 when he enlisted in the U.S. Navy during World War II. Assigned to the USS Pennsylvania, he served as a communications officer, decoding encrypted messages. He also boxed during his service, boasting a 10-0 amateur record. One of his proudest moments? Performing a magic trick for then-Secretary of the Navy James V. Forrestal, an experience that solidified his dream of entertaining even the toughest crowds. After the war, Carson attended the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, switching from journalism to speech and drama in hopes of becoming a radio personality. After graduating, he launched his career at WOW Radio in 1950, then moved to television with The Squirrel's Nest, a morning show. His talent was undeniable, and he quickly rose through the ranks with shows like Carson's Cellar, Earn Your Vacation, The Johnny Carson Show, and the popular Who Do You Trust? His success on Who Do You Trust? Eventually led NBC to offer him the hosting job for The Tonight Show after Jack Parr's departure. Initially hesitant, Carson eventually accepted and signed on in February 1962. That same year, The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson was born, and history was made. Carson remained at the helm until May 1992, using his platform to launch the careers of now iconic stars like Jim Carrey, Ellen DeGeneres, Eddie Murphy, and Andy Kaufman. The guest Carson disliked most. Despite his calm demeanor and professionalism, Johnny Carson did not get along with every guest, especially not with Bob Hope, the legendary comedian and entertainer. Hope, a British-born American icon, had a career that spanned nearly 8 decades. He was not just a comedian, but also an actor, producer, and the host of the Academy Awards a record 19 times. Born Leslie Towns Hope on May 29, 1903, he came from humble beginnings as the 5th of 7 children. He worked various odd jobs and even tried his hand at boxing under the name Packy East. A serious accident in 1921 left him needing facial reconstructive surgery, contributing to his distinctive look. Hope got his big break in vaudeville, Broadway, and then radio, eventually landing TV specials and film roles between 1934 and 1972. His comedy style was known for one-liners and self-deprecating humor, building himself up before tearing himself down. While fans adored him, Johnny Carson never truly warmed to him. The tension between Hope and Carson never outright said he disliked Hope, but the tension was clear, and it was eventually confirmed in the biography, Hope, Entertainer of the Century by Richard Zoglin, published by Simon & Schuster. Despite appearing regularly on The Tonight Show during the 1970s and 1980s, Hope was far from Carson's favorite. Their interactions followed a predictable pattern. Hope would walk on to the strains of "Thanks for the Memory," sometimes unannounced, deliver rehearsed jokes, show a highlight reel promoting his upcoming special, and exit swiftly. He rarely stayed for conversation and didn't engage in unscripted banter. Carson, a master of improvisation, found it frustrating that Hope relied so heavily on pre-written skits and was unable to adapt or joke spontaneously. This lack of spontaneity meant Carson couldn't flex his improv talents when Hope was on the couch. Producer Peter Lassley once said Carson respected Hope's stature in show business but didn't admire his work, especially in later years. In many ways, they represented two eras of comedy. Hope built his act on topical monologues and avoided politics, while Carson's humor was more urbane and refined. Carson was also NBC's late-night crown jewel, while Hope had long been the network's primetime superstar and radio icon from the 1930s and 40s. Their relationship was professional but distant, two legends sharing a stage but not a friendship. One thing Johnny Carson particularly disliked about Bob Hope was how the comedian could seemingly book himself on The Tonight Show without any prior notice. He'd often drop in whenever he had something to promote, which was pretty much all the time. Carson's friend Lolly once shared that Johnny would always sound exasperated whenever Hope appeared on the schedule. But when producers asked if he wanted to decline Hope, Carson would say, "No, you can't turn down Bob Hope." He understood that NBC executives held Hope in high esteem. After all, Hope had helped solidify the network's early success. Because of this legacy, NBC was eager to keep their relationship with Hope intact, granting him the freedom to appear on the show whenever he pleased. To Carson, though, these last-minute visits became more of a burden than a treat. As Hope aged, his appearances became even more difficult. Despite memory decline, he kept showing up, determined to keep performing. Hope would send in a detailed list of questions for Carson to ask, insisting they be asked in exact order, leaving no room for spontaneity. Hope's biographer, Richard Zoglin, wrote in his memoir that as Hope's hearing and vision worsened, his guest appearances became even more of a challenge. He'd struggle to follow along with what Carson was saying. If Johnny asked even one question out of sequence, Hope might respond with an answer to a completely different one. This posed a real dilemma for Carson, whose strength was in his wit and improvisation. He longed for authentic, unscripted conversations, something impossible with Hope. Later, Carson would reflect on his career in his memoir and admit he disliked interviewing Hope. The rigid structure of the segment, the list of do's and don'ts, and the drop in ratings whenever Hope appeared, all made him Carson's least favorite guest. Hope also insisted on airing 5-minute highlight reels during his segments, even though producer Jeff Sotzing, Carson's nephew, repeatedly asked him to limit them to just 2 minutes. While Carson had his share of celebrity clashes, including feuds with Wayne Newton, Joan Rivers, and Rich Little, Bob Hope firmly held the title of his least favorite guest. But if Hope was Carson's least favorite, many other guests left a lasting positive impression on both Carson and his audience. Frank Sinatra, for instance, rarely did interviews. So, when he sat down with Carson, especially alongside Don Rickles, it was a rare treat. Watching Sinatra relax and laugh as Rickles roasted him was a moment that revealed a lighter side of the legendary crooner. Another unforgettable guest was a 7-year-old Drew Barrymore who had just starred in E.T. She was overjoyed to meet Carson, gushing that she had waited her whole life for the opportunity. In 1976, Orson Welles also made an insightful appearance. He expressed his belief that radio was the superior medium because it required listeners to truly pay attention. Unlike TV, where visuals could distract from the message, radio demanded focus, something he felt was often lacking in television. Robin Williams, full of raw energy and brilliance, made several appearances and always left audiences in awe. Even early in his career, it was clear how incredibly talented he was, and his visits to Carson's show were some of the most memorable. In 1982, legendary news anchor Walter Cronkite joined Carson for a thoughtful conversation about the state of TV journalism. They discussed objectivity in reporting and the challenges news faced in adapting to the television era. Cronkite even laughed along with one of Carson's skits, which spoofed a grumpy newsman on his last day of work. Another regular guest was Joan Rivers. She appeared on The Tonight Show over 90 times and even became one of its most beloved guest hosts. However, their relationship soured when she abruptly told Carson, at the last minute, that she was launching her own talk show. Feeling blindsided, Carson banned her from ever appearing on The Tonight Show again. Burt Reynolds was another favorite. One of the biggest stars of the 1970s, he was always a hit whenever he came on the show. In total, he appeared 61 times, becoming a frequent and well-loved guest. Farrah Fawcett's 1984 appearance was also noteworthy. She came on to promote The Burning Bed, a role that marked a major departure from her usual glamorous image. In the film, she played an abused housewife fighting to protect her children. During the interview, she opened up about how much the role meant to her and the preparation she put into it. Jackie Gleason made just one appearance on The Tonight Show in 1985, but it was a standout moment. Gleason's presence and performance made a single visit feel like a lasting contribution. Jim Henson also brought joy to the show when he appeared alongside Kermit the Frog. Watching Kermit interact with Carson was hilarious and heartwarming for both the audience and viewers at home. Of course, no list of Carson's favorite guests would be complete without Don Rickles. The insult comic appeared more than 100 times and was consistently at his best on Carson's stage. Rickles was not just a recurring guest. He was a staple of the show. Another highlight came in 1989 when Jay Leno, Carson's eventual successor, appeared on the show. Although Fred Savage was the episode's headliner, Leno stole the spotlight with his hilarious jokes and a spirited back and forth with Carson. While it would be another 3 years before Leno officially took over, the moment hinted that he had the comedic talent to carry the torch. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our latest updates. Until next time, stay golden.